everyone. Welcome back to the Chosen Ministries podcast. My name is Sid.
And I'm Tony.
And we have a special guest today. Is this our first guest ever with us, too?
I think so.
Hey, let's go.
Oh, wait, actually not.
Oh, no.
Jonathan Rose is like...
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
yeah, Pastor Joe.
Oh, wait, yeah.
I was thinking
feel
of your
like a
women.
friend, like...
Yeah, like
Friend-
more casual. Like I'm
Like
not
a-
important, you know.
he is more like a casual guest. Our casual guest today is Tony's brother, Aaron.
Yes.
But not only is he his brother, he is also the youth... I'm going to say pastor.
Youth director is a
youth
title,
director, but he's
yeah.
over all of the youth at our church.
Yeah.
And he's taken over, like, how many months ago?
Officially, I think it was June is when I stepped in
Yeah.
as a youth pastor, stepped into a different position.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But then
About
it's like...
7 months or so.
But
Yes.
in addition to that, he's been doing this since, like, 18 years old.
Yeah, pretty much since me and Tony were in youth,
Yeah.
we fell in love with it. I mean, changed this kid's life. I mean, he used to wear purple shorts and green shirts until we went to youth. He got a little style.
Got a little bullied a little
change.
bit.
Got bullied a little bit, met some cool people. But no, we just fell in love with youth just from going to it. And then once I graduated, I mean, we were pretty much, it was almost like we were a part of the team even when we were in youth just because we were so involved. So once we graduated, they had like camps over the summer, which obviously we would do. But yeah, just pretty much from graduation on, I was involved in youth. And then last January is when I started an internship for actually being in ministry, like interning under the youth pastor at our church, which was really cool because doing youth for a while, it's like you feel like you know a lot. You feel like, oh man, I got, but you really don't until like you're actually there in the offices. Like there's always this joke in churches of like, well, what do you guys do on weekdays? Like, you know, Sundays we're here or whatnot. So once I started the internship, it was just one day a week. And then I'd be there Sunday. So I guess twice a week. I was like, wow, there's a lot that goes into this. It's not, cause it's all like the admin stuff and the behind the scenes and then the reaching out, the phone calls, you're going to get coffee with people, you're meeting with either parents or students or just like other people involved in the church. But there's a lot more that went into it. So it was really cool to get the hands on, which I don't want to jump ahead, but yeah, so doing from pretty much 18 on, 27
So
now.
like
So
7-8 years.
Yeah, almost a decade now because just about, not including when I was actually in high school because me and Tony ran the youth group there. So that was
Anything else you want to say about your brother? Why they should listen to him today? Anything about him?
yeah, hype me up.
My brother is he's always had a heart for the youth, but he's like so good at connecting with the youth.
It is impressive.
It is super impressive.
It's probably because you're like super mature and stuff.
Yeah.
You say immature?
I literally thought about that today. I'm like, I feel like it's because I'm the young, besides
I'm kidding,
Chloe,
he's not.
but the youngest out of the 5 that grew up in the same house. Because I was like, I do not feel like an adult, and that's probably why. Like me and Riley laugh about it all the time because I'm like, we have our own house, we are married, but I still feel
have
like
your
a
own
kid.
business,
Yeah, I feel like a
like saying.
teenager.
Yeah.
And it's probably because I'm the youngest, so I would think that has something to play. Maybe why it's easier, but sorry.
No, you're good. No, but he's great connecting with the youth, and I mean, I was gonna say he's. Did you say he was immature? I was gonna say he's wise. He's
Two different opinions.
no, he is super wise, and like the kids just like legit like look up to Aaron.
Yeah.
Like even when he wasn't like the youth pastor, and we were just like volunteering, kids would just like flock to him and run to him. So he definitely has this anointing from a very young age, and we
Like
knew.
during camps, everyone wants to be on Aaron's team.
Yeah. So definitely have this anointing, and then now
We
you're
never won, but-
and I've always actually felt that you'd be in youth ministry somehow. I thought it was going to be just rapping at youth, you know, but
He's also a Christian musician.
yeah, so he does a lot of that stuff, but that's why he can connect with the kids easier too.
Thank you.
But,
Yeah.
dude, of course.
I know whenever I started last year, because it threw me off, because the person who's head of Next Gen at our church asked if we could meet for coffee with the youth pastor at the time. And this was before me and Riley got married. And she was just asking, she was like, what are your passions? Where do you see yourself with these, blah, blah, blah. And I had never thought about ministry at all. Like I loved volunteering, but the thought of ministry is like very intimidating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's just, you know, you're held to a high standard, and like, it's like, oh my gosh, like you hear about like, you know, I think biblically it even says like pastors specifically, like they get, like they're held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to live, and like, you know, when judgment day comes, it's like, well, you're a pastor, so there's different judgment for that. Not that I was thinking about being a pastor or even am a pastor now, but so when she brought that to me, I was like, I've never thought about ministry. I just like volunteering. So I knew that they were praying, and during rewind a few months before that at the youth summer camp, it was my first time doing it at this church. she came up to me during the summer camp and she was just like speaking life. And she's like, I just want you to know that like you're anointed with this stuff. Like I see it. And so just having somebody who I know was praying for me behind the scenes, and I did not know her well, and was just like kind of preparing me behind the scenes and speaking life into me. Because we came from a place to where it was like, you know, it just wasn't like that. You don't really receive that. So then whenever the time came and we met for coffee and she was asking, I was like, I never saw men, no. And then so she was praying. Then she's like, well, you know, let's talk after you get married. And then they're like, would you be interested in doing an internship? And I was like, yeah, sure. And at this point I was super kind of confused in life of like what I was going to do career wise. And I was kind of like really crying out to God, because I'm like, I feel like there's a purpose for my life, but I don't want to keep running around this mountain trying to figure what it is. And like music was definitely a part of my life, and I felt like that was purpose, but at some point I put that as an idol. And that October I got to a place where I finally let go of music and gave it to God, and I was like, I won't make another song if it's not a part of your will. And literally the next month is when they approached me, and it was like finally when I let go of my desires, God opened doors of like, hey, this is my calling for you. Not that music isn't a part of it to some degree, but like this is where I want you. So it was honestly really beautiful, because I was finally like, I let go of the pressure of me trying to figure out my life, and I gave it literally to the hands of God while I was just still subbing, you know, substitute teacher, just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then they approached and started the internship. And then in June, it was like May, where they were like, hey, like, you know, Pastor Derek's going to move on to be a campus pastor, and we would love for you to step in as the student director.
That's why it's like so important to be in like a good church and like good community of people that, you know, are like praying for you, and not only like just trying to fill a space, but people who can like call out things in you. So it's like they saw that in you before. And like, you, I don't know, just being surrounded by people that you know like are just led by the Spirit. When they say something, it's almost like, I'm going to pray about it, but you just know, you're like, okay, they spend time with the Lord, they know. And it's just cool, because like obviously I feel like you're truly living in what we all knew was going to happen one day, and maybe you did deep down, but like it's just cool that like and there's just so much fruit, like the way the ministry has grown and these kids' lives that have been impacted. And it's actually funny because his wife, before they got married, was still one of my best friends, and so like we were just like separately friends, and they got together. But when they were like in the dating engaged phase, like I remember her telling me, she's like, I know he's going to be in youth ministry one day. Like he doesn't think so, but I know he will. I'm like, so I wish he will. I hope he does. But it's cool just to see it now. And you guys are married over a year now. So
that's cool. Because you said that too. You're like, I always knew you were going to be in ministry. And I'm like, I was so blinded to this because I never thought that. And it's funny that Riley said that, because she's very, I mean, you guys know, more to herself. So like, even when it comes to being like, again, not a pastor, but that title of pastor's wife. And she's like, that is like not what I, you know, and even like last night, like we had service and they texted staff, like a group of us, to be ready for going up for prayer, you know, for people who want prayer. And I whispered to Riley, I said, I'm gonna go up there to be a part of the prayer team. I was like, do you want to come with me? And her face just like red and white. She's like, am I supposed to? And I just started laughing. I was like, don't come if you're uncomfortable. And then we were like, you know what, let me, you know, ask later. Like, you don't worry about it now. We'll figure out later, like whatever. It was just funny because I think about like Pastor Derek, who was, you guys know, the youth pastor that I was interning under, learned a lot from. And so when he goes up there to pray, like his wife's with him. So I was just thinking like, should Riley be up there with me? Like, what's the dynamic? And she's just like, oh gosh, no. Which she definitely would. But I was like, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out another time.
So you said that it was intimidating to think about going into like youth ministry or ministry in general. So for people who like feel like there's a calling on their life, or even just to volunteer in some way, but they feel like it's intimidating, how did taking that step like actually help your life? Like, because I feel like whenever you have that responsibility, it's intimidating, but I feel like it also helps make you want to be a better person and draw you closer to Christ in a way. Like, have you experienced that yourself?
100%. Yeah, because it's definitely like, I'm not just responsible for myself anymore. It's like, you can't fake it. You can't fake ministry. And to be honest, there was times where it's like, I'm going to act like I'm all like holy and reading my Bible and blah, blah, blah. But once you're in ministry and like, you're in a way like shepherding a flock, like again, being the student director is like, I speak on Sundays, so I have to fill myself up to be able to pour out. And even like I had a conversation with Riley's grandpa during Christmas, because he's a pastor, and I was like, it's hard not to be in a place when it comes like when you're speaking every Sunday, to come from like head knowledge. It's like, oh, I'm just learning this so I can give it out, because I wanted to come from like the Spirit. Like I want to like I want it to come from revelation and truth, and not just like, oh, I'm just learning this. Mm-hmm. And he even, I mean, he's, you know, an older man, and he even says like, that's something that you're constantly going to have to, you know, battle and make sure like I'm not just doing this just to check a box. It's like I'm truly like diving into the word, and not that I'm definitely not perfect at it, but I'm striving to be better at that. But overall, yeah, when it comes to just being in ministry, it definitely, again, the responsibility calls you to live to a higher standard. And it's really encouraging just to know that, like, again, it's pressure, but there's also people that are like relying on you in a sense. Like, even though the students don't really realize that, because again, students are students, like they're just there to have fun or whatnot, but it's like what we say on Sundays is what's going to minister to their spirit. So it's like there is definitely pressure, but it's good pressure. And then like even for like me and Riley and just like being, you know, married, and it's like, you know, we have desires and dreams as well, but along with that, it's like ministry is the core of it all, and it always lines up with like, what does God want first, and then we go based around that. Like I remember when we got our house last year and we were doing a lot of remodeling, and Pastor Derek texted me, and this was when he was still, this was when I was interning under him. I believe, I was interning under him, and he texted me on Saturday. He's like, hey, like I woke up not feeling good at all. Can you speak tomorrow? And you remember that feeling of just like the pressure of like speaking, especially like now that you don't know the material. So instantly I woke up and I texted him. I was like, sorry, bro. I was like, you know, literally busy all day because we were ripping up the flooring of the house. I was like, I wouldn't be able to do it. Could we just do small groups? Because that was like my easy way out. And then he was like, yeah, man, totally, no worries, that's fine. And then when Riley woke up, I talked to her and told her, and she was like, are you sure that's what you should, like, are you sure that's what your response should have been? She's like, did you give yourself some time to actually think and pray about it? And I was like, no, like literally, I just woke up, read it, and said, oh, heck no, I'm not in it. So then I ended up, an hour later, I texted him, I was like, hey, I was like, would you rather it be the message or small? And he was like, it'd be nice if it was a message so we can continue with the series. He's like, you know, I understand that feeling. I've been there before too, last minute having to speak. So I was like, you know what, I'll do it. But I knew my whole day was packed of remodeling this house because we had people helping us, and I couldn't just have them go do it and me not be there. And I remember specifically I was ripping up the flooring, which was not like easy stuff, like just drilling these tile floors. And I remember when I was doing it that I like heard in my spirit the Lord say, like, if you take care of my business, I'll take care of your business. Mm-hmm. And I felt that so clear because it was like in the natural, I'm like, I'm so busy, I have so much to do. But like it was like that reassurance of like, if you take care of like what I'm calling you to do, and in regards to that Sunday, but really ministry as a whole, it's like, don't worry financially, don't worry about, it's like, I'll take care of the things that like you might not think you'll be able to take care of. And in that moment, it was literally just like ripping up the floor because the floor was so hard to get up. And from that moment on, I know this is weird, like this is just a little glimpse, but like the floor was so much easier to rip up. Like it, like the day before it took me all day to do one room, and within those like 12 hours I was there, we got the whole living room done. So like that was like a little glimpse of like God will take care, like, because that's what I was worried about. I was like just ripping up this floor in this moment, but really it's like ministry as a whole, like you take care of my business and I'll take care of your business.
Yeah.
So
it's like that verse that we talked about last episode even, where I'm blanking
he blesses
out.
with no sorrow to it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just cool too, like that just also shows like when God calls you to do things in life, it's going to be uncomfortable, but when you take that step of faith, he'll honor that, and then he'll just help you get through that next step, which is so cool.
And when it comes to the youth, like I think about the verse, because you already felt it on your heart, people are calling it out in you, you know, where it's like the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And so it's like, if you have that desire on your heart to go into youth ministry or help out in some capacity, like we need to do it, because I feel like the kids these days, they're just going through so much. Like I know a lot of our listeners are parents and have little kids, but they're gonna grow up one day. And we just like, for me, sometimes he'll tell me stuff that like these kids are struggling with, or like just like what's going out in the world these days, because I don't know. I'm in my little bubble of like toddler zone. So that's why it's like, I don't know like what to look forward to, or like what they're struggling with, what's on their phones and stuff. And so I wanted to ask you, not like personal, like individual kids, but like as a whole, like what are kids struggling with most in this generation, do you think? It's so hot.
I know.
Like,
I was cool when I walked in.
I know, it's freezing.
It warmed up bad.
So I think one thing, which a lot of people could probably see and agree with, is anxiety. But there's a line when it comes to anxiety where I feel like that word's just getting thrown around now because everybody identifies themselves with anxiety. And this is something that Trina, who's next gen as a whole, is super passionate about it as well. So I learn a lot from her and books that she's reading. But you don't have to be in youth ministry to realize like students are just identifying with anxiety. Like they'll say social anxiety, and it's like, no, it's like you're just 12 years old and it feels awkward to go meet new students. That's normal. Like, it's nerve-wracking.
Now there's like a word.
There's a word too. It's like you're identifying with it. And I mean, we know that words are powerful. So when you have a 12-year-old constantly confessing anxiety over their life, they're going to grow up really experiencing anxiety because they put them in that box and they label themselves. So anxiety is definitely huge. Like I'm not downplaying it. Like, again, there are the ones that it's like, okay, it's just your nerves. Like, it's like going to school for the first time and meeting new people. That's one thing. But there is like real anxiety as well that you've experienced. I had a season that I experienced as well, where it's like, no, like you're crippled. Like you're really down bad. And what I believe a huge part of that is social media. I think the influence of social media, the comparison of social media, and the constantly striving for more. Like if we think about back to the like 1900s, 1920s, it's like people were content with their 9 to 5, coming home to their kids, having dinner, and just hanging out with their family.
No TV,
maybe listening on the radio, like whatever that looked like back then. But now it's like you're constantly being pushed this narrative of like you have to strive for more, you have to continue to move, like you shouldn't sleep, you shouldn't get good rest, like you shouldn't sleep until you're successful. So you have these 16-year-old boys, these men who are like striving so much, and it's like, bro, just chill, like just relax, enjoy where you are in life, and don't look to the future and believe that God has good plans for you. But like we put too much pressure on ourselves, and it's literally like out of pride. It's like how great do we think we are to be able to do these things, and then it just ends up in this ball of anxiety, which a lot of students are experiencing because of comparison, because of the way they're identifying themselves with anxiety, and just the confusion that you get from social media and the way that people, I won't go into details, but the way that the world says like it's okay if you feel this way, it's okay if you think this about yourself, like self-love and self-love is great, but like our truth is in Jesus. It's not about within ourselves. So anxiety is definitely probably one of the main things I feel like, but with that attached, social media is not that it's a bad thing, but I definitely think there should be restrictions. I'm not a parent yet, but I believe there should be restrictions for students.
I hate social media because like in the seasons of anxiety too, like when I sense a season of anxiety, it's like it's so tempting just to just scroll on my phone so I don't think about it. So then it's like you're not dealing with the root. Now you're just distracting yourself. So then you don't have time, and especially when you're young at this age, you don't have time to develop your brain enough to handle these emotions, and then you're hiding it. So then now when you're out in public, you can't stay off your phone because you don't know how to deal with people. It's like it's a whole cycle. And then also too, it's like, dude, I don't know why lately I've been getting videos of like men turning a certain age, which I'm close to, and they die, and I'm just like, dude, it's like right before bed too. I'm just like, I gotta get rid of social media. It's like right
scrolling.
Dude, it's terrible. So I can't even imagine like kids seeing that 24/7, like identifying. But it's scary.
And it's like, I think it's something too that we need to start with as parents. Also, like, it's so easy, you get tired, especially being a toddler mom. You're like, oh, they should be in bed anyways. Like, that's sometimes my excuse, because like Louis stays up so late, and I'm like, he can watch TV and I can just scroll my phone because most kids are asleep at 8 and it's 10 o'clock. So, but then I'm like, what habit is that? Because now if he sees mom and dad on our phones, and then like one day when he can have a phone, I know.
And I'm not a parent, so I'm definitely not like in no means judging any parents, because I can't imagine how hard that is to keep teenagers off their phone. But there was a study done in UK that I just saw on Instagram, on social media, but they took phones away from middle schoolers for, it was like 7 days or 21 days, something like that. And they documented these students, and these students were legit having panic attacks away from their phone. Like they were like, I couldn't sleep at all last night. Like this and that. Like they legit were coming to school like anxious, and they're just like, because they don't have, like, they're so attached to this thing, and like almost like they're identifying with, it's like, if they don't have this, who are they? And so day 1, day 2 goes by and they're freaking out. Day 3 goes by and they're like a little bit more calm, but still whatever. By day 6 and 7, they were like, I haven't got that much sleep in so long. Like, it gave me chills, because they're like, oh my gosh, like I woke up refreshed. Like I'm usually tired and dragging, blah, blah, blah. And they were legit talking to each other in school, hanging out, playing outside. And they're like, oh, we rode our bikes together on the trails yesterday. And like, then they were actually saying like, oh my gosh, like I actually like life better without my phone.
So sad.
They just don't know it because that's all they
Right.
know is their phone. And so that's not judging parents, but there should be boundaries within that,
I think
because
so too.
students aren't really living life. They're living through a screen.
Yeah.
And that's causing a lot of anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah.
So sad.
I had a train of thought. 1 second.
That's why we need to get on flip phones.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, what I remember, like, when I was 12, 13, went to church camp, and I don't know what my phone did at the time. Like, you couldn't get on the internet or anything. I don't know why I wanted it so bad, but I remember like throwing like a fit because I didn't have my phone. But it was like, that was the week I gave my life to the Lord. And even nowadays, like, I know our sister, who's like 12, she went to camp, and this is not just her, it's like everyone that goes to camp.
Yeah.
You don't have your phone, and then they have this like amazing moment with Jesus, make
Yeah.
all these amazing friends, and it's like, that's just like, if you can get your kid camp, like
Yeah.
a good church camp, I swear it's like they come back
Yeah.
like completely new.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, there's a reason, because they're unplugged, they have to talk to kids,
Yeah.
they have to engage in the messages and
Pay
the worship and pay
attention.
attention.
Eliminate
And-
distractions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is sad, because I feel like I've heard this saying which is, in my opinion, when I was in high school, I did not even like hear the word anxiety. I feel like it just was not common.
Right.
And maybe it was always there, you know, that feeling, but I just feel like there wasn't like a word to it until I
Yeah.
got older. But people just say like it's kind of deep, but they're like, it's just like different demons with like, now we just have a name to it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's why it's so important while our kids are little. Like, I've struggled with anxiety. Tony has struggled with anxiety. And it's like, I would just pray that over our children too,
Yeah.
that they wouldn't be attacked in that way, and like depression, mental health, things like that. Because as they get older, we can try and protect them as much as we want, but like,
Yeah.
they're going to be surrounded by kids who are saying this or
For
bringing this
sure.
up and giving them these fresh thoughts.
Yeah, you can only do so
it's-
much as a parent,
Yeah.
right? And then the rest, you're relying on God to do the rest. And one thing that I would encourage, again, I'm not a parent, but I
But
would.
you're around kids a lot. So
I'm
it's
around,
like,
I'm around students, and I have 18 nieces and nephews, so I got my feet wet a little bit. One thing is like, let your kids be bored. Like,
Yeah.
we were so bored growing up because we were too broke to have technology. I mean, we had Xbox and stuff, but like, we were outside all the time, and like, boredom literally stems creativity. It's like, if you allow your student or your toddler or whatever to be bored for a while, maybe not toddler, but like, to let them be bored, it's like their brain works in a different way to where it just stimulates, where like they
Yeah.
have to create something
Yeah.
to stay entertained.
Right.
Nobody's creating anything anymore. Like, students aren't coming up with original ideas or making fun on their own because they have something at the touch of their fingers that they can just log on to, keep them distracted for all 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So nobody's truly like, God speaks to us when he's always speaking to us, but we hear him the most when we don't have distractions.
Yeah.
So if you allow yourself to be bored and just sit in your thoughts and let the Lord minister to you, but let your creativity flow, it's like that. I think that's why those students started to experience like freedom and fun and joy, because they're like, oh, like, my brain can do the thing, like stimulate itself. I don't need a screen. Like, it can stimulate and create something to where I can, you can come up with the next best idea, you don't know, or just come up with a fun game. So I would encourage parents and just, if you're around kids, let them be bored. Let them experience that.
Yeah.
I think too, it's like an attack from the enemy on parents too. Make it like, oh, it's normal to like let my kids have an iPad because I just need a rest. I had a long day at work, or
Yeah.
like you make excuses to allow. And I mean, I'm not perfect. I've done that many of times when I'm tired and I just like let Louis be distracted with TV for a minute.
Yeah.
And it's just something I feel like it's just like such an easy out. But I think as parents, we should take responsibility to be like, no, like even when you are tired, you should like try to give your all to your kid and not just like distract them.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed whenever we just, like you said, whenever we let Louis just like do his own thing, then he'll just get caught up in creativity and he'll be distracted for
He's like
an hour or two.
like
Yeah.
independent play king.
Yeah, and then as soon as you're like, "Oh, Gooey, and you try to play with him, he gets mad, and then you ruin his creativity. But like, it is true.
Which
like, you
actually
just,
heard that's like a toddler's stat. Like, if they're playing good by themselves, like, don't mess with them,
Just
because
let 'em.
like they're like growing that muscle of like
Yeah.
focusing and independence. So it's
Yeah.
like, but then he looks so cute, and
It's
then
so
you feel
cool.
bad
Like, I wanna
because you're
play
like,
with him.
is he lonely? But like then he's
Yeah.
like, because like he was having fun.
It's so
Right.
cool seeing it. It reminds us of when we were kids.
Yeah.
We
It's
used to
so
play with
cute.
toys all the time.
Dude, yeah, I feel like you especially, you were always outside just like climbing trees or climbing dugouts, and I feel like you hated being inside, but when you were inside, all you want to do is play video games. So it was
Yeah.
like, there was at least a good balance with it, but literally nowadays just like phones are everything. And watch me have kids and I'm like, yeah, just get the technology. I don't, like, again, this isn't coming from judgment, just from what I'm seeing is like,
Yeah.
you can tell that
You just
phones
gotta
really
be
stimulate.
balanced.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
healthy balance for
Yeah.
sure. Because it's like you can't hide your kids from what's going on,
Right.
in this day and age. So it is teaching them a healthy balance and stuff. And like,
Definitely.
And I really feel like this whole episode, like I don't feel like, the generation that's coming up and our kids are like a lost cause by any means. I actually feel like this is going to be like the most like powerful generation for
sure.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Like our kids and the Gen Z, and like you just see all these Christian influencers, or like that Bryce guy, he's like 21 or something. Like, all these kids that just have this boldness to preach the gospel.
Yeah.
And so like I want to know like how we can support the upcoming generation. But first, what do you think kids that like aren't at that place yet with the boldness with Christ, like what do you think they're like yearning for most?
That's a good question, because I've seen kind of both ways that I've done the ministry so far, only being 7 months in, but like I was so focused on the fun aspect of like, we have to make it exciting and fun.
Yeah.
And that's what youth is, like youth ministry. You want to keep it fun and you want to
Yeah.
keep it fresh. And, I'm trying to talk to other leaders about ideas and what can we do different. And so what I love about our church, first off, is there's a 2-week break at the end of the year to where it's like work from home. Like, obviously we'll operate on Sundays. And this is my first year being there, so I got to experience that. It's almost like you're in high school and you have that 2-week Christmas break or whatnot. So I was home a lot for those 2 weeks, and I was able to, and Pastor Joe also encouraged us to like pick up a book, like something that's going to challenge you spiritually or grow spiritually, like prayer, worship, whatever. So something I picked up was a book called The Bait of Satan, which, it was a good book. But anyways, within those 2 weeks, I was just praying like, Lord, like what do you want for next year? Like give me words for the years, for students, for my life, all these things. So I came out of those 2 weeks really refreshed, but I came out like really wanting to disciple students and not just be all about the fun.
Yeah.
So we've had 2 services so far, because the first one got snowed out, and we're in a series on worship that Pastor Joe did called Made for Worship. So I'm pretty much taking his notes and reviving it for students, making it, our message. And the last 2 weeks we talked about worship, and I really studied the subject through Pastor Joe's messages, and I'm able to been delivering it the past 2 weeks with like true conviction, true truth, and like discipleship. And the way that they pay attention versus when I'm just focused on the fun and like trying to like, hey, we'll do a 10-minute message and we'll get back to games. It's like they're so disconnected when it's all about fun, or when it's all like when I'm not truly like diving into the word and discipling. But these past 2 weeks, like students that are usually talking and causing, not corruption,
Or
but
the ruckus,
the ruckus during the, like, they are so engaged. Like when I see like there's certain boys that I'm thinking of right now that are literally just almost at the edge of their seat, just like so honed in, because like they're actually getting truth.
Yeah.
So again, this year is like, I want to focus as the youth director to really focus on discipleship. Like students are hungry for truth. Like they get so much false information. They get so much false truth of like, oh, this is how you get joy. This is how you get happiness. It's like, once they get true truth, it's like they can't not experience that.
Yeah.
So even this past Sunday, we're talking about worship, and the end I shared like my struggle that I had with anxiety in 2020 and how it literally brought me to my knees on a Saturday night. I opened the Bible, I was reading Psalms, and I was like, I began to worship truly by myself in this living room. My arms were raised, crying because I was seeking the Lord. And that night I experienced breakthrough. At the end of that service, on a regular Sunday, which it would usually just be, all right, guys, like go back to play, students came up to the altar to go back into worship, hands raised, crying. And it's like, because they're getting truth. And if they're experiencing anxiety, like we didn't hear this at this age because anxiety wasn't as big of a word or as much as it is. But again, I truly think technology and phones and the comparison and seeing all these things, it's stemming some type of anxiety at an early age. It's like these students are experiencing now what I just experienced for the first time, mid-20s. And so once they got that truth and realized, oh, there's truly freedom in the name of Jesus. There's truly freedom in the word of God. It's like, that's what they're hungry for. Yeah. And then the Bible says, seek first the kingdom, all these things will be added. So if we're focusing on truth and discipleship, God will add the fun. Like, he'll bring ideas for the games and all that stuff. Yeah. But truly just discipling them, because you can tell the difference of when they're truly getting truth and they're going up. We started doing a prayer box this year. They're going up and writing their prayer requests and dropping it in the box. Again, students that you would never imagine that would go up for prayer. Like, they don't care who sees them. They're writing their prayer requests, putting in the box. So it's just really cool to see that, like, God's definitely moving, like you said, in this generation. I think this generation will be legit the most life-changing generation. Like they're so hungry, even young adults are just so hungry for God and truth right now because we've been fed such a false narrative on Bible, on the world, on the government. We've been fed so many false narratives that people, they can't help but
they
strive.
want truth.
They just want truth. And once you give it to them, it's like they can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
So that's what I've experienced so far.
Yeah. When I was in youth, my youth pastor, he's seriously so amazing, but I always laugh because I'm like, he did not shy away from anything. He was so intense that I literally laugh sometimes because I'm like, I can't believe we had like these types of conversations in youth that were like super powerful. Yeah. But like, I think about it, if it wasn't for his teaching and his honest truth of like the word, and that's what he's passionate about. Yeah. It expedited like my life so fast as a Christian. And like, I felt like I was just on fire for the Lord when I was a kid because of that teaching. Yeah. Because he treated me or treated our ministry kind of like we were like mini adults. Like he, you know, didn't say things that I guess could have been like for adults, but he phrased it for students, and it just made me feel like I was like more a part of something than just like a kid's fun little group, which we did. Sure. He was also, he loved all the weird fun stuff too, but I loved his messages growing up because like these teenagers, I mean, they are so much older acting than when we were. So it's like they can take these conversations and they know much more than we think about the world and whatever else. So it's like just that honest truth I think is so important.
Yeah. Like if we approach youth ministry now with the same approach we did 10, 15 years ago, we're going to miss the mark because students are experiencing so much more through social media. Like you said, they're maturing, not really in a great way because they're seeing so much with their eyes that they wouldn't have seen in the first 30 years of their life, but they see it all through social media. So if we treat them like as if it was youth ministry 10 years ago, a lot of times we're going to miss the mark because they can handle more truth now, and they should handle more truth because if you're seeing all this stuff, if you're experiencing all this stuff, then we can't talk about VeggieTales anymore. Like we have to give you the meat of scripture, which that's probably how it should have always been. But, you know, I mean, I think we've all also have experienced like kind of like the corny youth ministry where it's very like watered down and like it's like all we're gonna do is compare like the VeggieTales. So why not?
It was so much more innocence back then, though.
For sure,
it is now.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's cool too, though, that you kind of got this revelation yourself, or just this desire to truly disciple them rather than the fun. Because like after you're saying that, I vividly have specific memories of certain youth days where it like really struck my spirit. And I remember like going home, buying notebooks and pens at the Dollar Tree, wanting to dive into my work because it impacted me so much. And it's like, I think it's easy to just brush off like, oh, they're young, like bring up the youth to have fun, but we forget that they actually understand and their spirit is still striving for the word. So for parents too, be mindful that like it is important to put your kids into youth or church in some way, because like they will truly be impacted at a young age. I mean, stories you tell me, you've experienced that youth changed your life, same with us, that we've experienced. So it's like a huge part of life when you're that young, going to church or youth.
And if you're like watching the show, like you need more information on how to like get ahead of the cell phone stuff and what are social with younger kids, we did do an episode with Jonathan Brozazog. He has like 8 kids and they range from like 2 to like 19, and we sat down with him and he did a ton of really great information on how to like jump ahead of the cell phone stuff. If you just want that as a resource.
He's so good with that.
So that was in season 2 if you guys are interested in that one. But my last like question that I have for you is like, how do you think we can best impact this upcoming generation for Jesus?
Again,
as adults,
I think truth, but we're also experiencing a lot of young adults radically being saved, again, because they're experiencing the same thing that students are, of like, I've been told a lie. I've been constantly trying to find true joy. And I think once you experience happiness for so long, you realize happiness isn't the same thing as joy. It's like happiness comes and goes depending on your situation. But you can be in the depths of the dirt and have joy because joy comes from the Lord. So I think you can only fake happiness for so long and realize, oh, I actually need something else. Like there's not a void that's filled. So we have young adults that are on fire for God now too. I think one of the best things that I see in youth ministry is when young adults come back to the youth to help lead. Because youth ministry is so important, again, for parents to bring your students. It's so important that your students get involved in youth ministry, but it's not just for Sunday morning services or Wednesday services. It's because of the leadership that's there, and that they can connect with a 23-year-old or a 27-year-old that's like, hey, I've been there with you. Let me walk this with you. Because a lot of students aren't telling their parents what they're going through because they don't want to get in trouble. They're guilty, they're ashamed, but they'll open up to me or they'll open up to somebody else to where it's like, hey, I was there. Like, I remember that feeling of anxiety. I remember the insecurity I had in high school. And none of that changed until I got the truth of who Jesus was. Yeah. So when we have young adults, and not even like, we have so many incredible in our youth ministry, so many incredible like adults, like 40s and 50-year-old, like that are serving, that is also super important because a lot of these kids don't have parent figures to look up to. So something I'll say, kind of going off track, is one of the biggest epidemics that we're seeing in student ministry, or just in America as a whole, is fatherless homes. So when you have kids coming up in fatherless homes, it's like the pastor last night even talked about, like, you need a man in the house. And a lot of houses aren't getting that. So youth ministry is one of the only places where they have a consistent male figure in the house that they can rely on. So if you don't have a male figure in your house, and you're in school, when you're in 6th, 7th, 8th, all the way through 12th grade, you don't have a consistent teacher because every year you're switching teachers. So you might get attached to a teacher and then the next year you're on to the next one. Or you might get attached to a teacher and then the next hour you have a different teacher. So youth ministry is one of the only places where you can have a consistent impact in a student's life. And if you do it right, and if that family stays at the church, you have 7 years of consistency with the student. So I remember our youth leaders growing up that like really impacted my life. And it was like, my dad was in my life. So it's not that I was missing a father figure, but even if you do have a father figure, it's important to have those male men that you can look up to that are leading the way. Yeah. So having not just the sermons on Sundays, because to be honest, like I only remember 2 sermons from when I was in youth, but I do remember the emotions and the feeling and the pull to chase after God. I remember what I felt those days, but it's not all, the message is great, but it's also about that community of like, hey, we have leaders that are here to help these students move forward. Young adults are super important to draw them, because it's like, hey, I just did that. I just went through this season of life. Let me help walk you through that. And I want to, I don't want to ramble, but there is a statistic to help encourage young adults or people who are like at their church, like, I want to get involved. I don't know where to get involved. I'm biased. I think youth ministry is the best place to serve and get involved. But when I started as an intern, Pastor Derek said, hey, like, let's work on a 90-second elevator pitch. This is ministry, right? So it's like when we do Connect Track and they ask like, hey, can you come talk about youth ministry? You have a minute to a minute and 30 seconds to tell them the importance of youth ministry. And one of the statistics he gave me that I looked up to like make sure and confirm was that 94% of believers get saved before the age of 18. So you have 94% of believers like us, like, I got saved before 18. So 94% of people get saved before the age of 18. From 18 on, it drops. And that's only 6% of people get saved after they leave high school. So we have a short window to truly minister to students and truly have them surrender their life to Christ before they go to college and before they end up, you know, not a part of that 6% that get saved after. So it's like the importance of youth ministry is that this is when they truly take this stuff in. It's like you're constantly growing mentally, and you want them to grow with Christ at the same time. You don't want them to grow to be 18, 19, 20 on their own, because then they're thinking, oh, I got life on my own. Like, I did it this far without Christ. Why do I need him now? But I do think we're seeing also a huge surplus of young adults getting saved. So that statistic might change, because I think young adults are on fire for God, and a lot of young adults are coming to Christ. But the importance of youth ministry is 94% of believers get saved before they hit 18 years old. And once they hit 18 or 19 years old, then the average is a lot lower, you know, that 6%. So that's why youth, like, obviously God calls us to certain things. And I believe he called me to youth ministry. I don't know if that's for a season, if that's for 10 years, 20 years, whatever that looks like. And I'm not trying to plan it out, but even if you're like, I don't know if I feel called to youth ministry, I don't know where I feel called in the church, I think youth ministry is a great place to start
for sure, to
minister to students and help them reach that 94% before they graduate throughout high school.
Dang, that's a crazy statistic.
That really is.
For sure.
And it's fulfilling too, helping the next generation.
It fills your cup for sure. Like, even if you're like, oh, I never saw myself in youth ministry, like, we have people who come serve fall in love with, like, I found my calling and passion because I served in youth ministry. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, then the Lord started speaking to me like, hey, this is, you know, a part of your calling. It's like, some people don't know that until they go try. So it's like, you have great young men and women, and then again, adult men and women who are serving the next generation, because we know the importance. Like, this generation is going to be there longer than we are now, right? So they're going to be the ones who are lifting up the next generation when we're not here anymore. Yeah. And I truly believe that this generation is going to shake the world like we've never seen before.
I agree. I think so too.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
No.
Well, thank you for being here with us. And where can they find you on social media or YouTube or all those things?
Aaron Kell, AARONKELL. On Instagram, I think it's 4 L's because somebody else.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there's a couple extra L's.
Yeah, so. On Instagram it's 4 L's. I messaged a guy, I was like, hey man, can I get my name? And he never replied.
That's how mine is too, because I have 2 D's in my Sid Kell.
Yeah, I guess it makes it unique. And then also on YouTube, which that's where Instagram is where I focus more, I guess, on like music. Like if I'm not posting about music, I'm not on it a whole lot.
Yeah.
This year I'm trying to be on it more, but YouTube's also like music. And then see if the Lord leads me to do anything else with that. But I'm sure they know we go to Twin Rivers, which is an incredible church. So we post on the students page on you know what our Sundays look like and what we're talking about through the Twin Rivers Instagram. So
sweet.
And too, with his music, if you were on like social media at any point during COVID, and you're Christian, you probably has heard his cover of Oceans.
Yeah.
And from there, like, he's just done like tons of Christian covers that are just like so good, and of course his own original music. So if you're looking for someone that does good Christian rap, it's not cheesy. And then sometimes you do some like little pop stuff. I like the pop stuff.
I know Tony said when I posted that snippet
like
the other day,
3 years ago or something. I'm like, why did he not release this? This is like so good. I just don't like. I'm just not a rapper.
Yeah, which I want to do more pop.
I like the pop
too,
stuff,
but
most people like rap. It's just a me thing.
Yeah, no, I like the pop stuff too. I like the melody or melodic rap is probably where I fit the most in. But yeah, if you want to check out the music, that'd be great. But
Spotify too.
Yeah, Spotify, Aaron Kell, Apple Music, Aaron Kell, social media, TikTok, which I'm never on.
View. And then we are going to head out of here. But thank you guys so much, seriously, for leaving the reviews, because it seriously bumps our podcast up so much in our ratings and everything. And we try to read all of them. So thank you so much. This was actually, I went on YouTube because I always forget that you guys can comment on YouTube. So I'm reading this one from Rach Ellen from 7 days ago. She said, I just want to thank you so much for your kids ministry here on YouTube. I have a 15-month-old now, and she absolutely adores you both. You guys never fail to bring such a light or a big smile to her face. So happy to have resources like this for her to learn, and more importantly about the Lord and Savior. Praying for blessings for your family's lives and sending love from the UK.
Oh, so cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you guys so much. Seriously, leaving the comments on Apple Podcasts help us so much.
Yes,
so
we appreciate it.
We're really grateful for that. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right. See ya.